The prestige of Starlight Academy. Ao stood in front of the grand iron gates of Starlight Academy, gripping the straps of her worn-out backpack. The golden letters engraved on the arch above read, "Knowledge is power, prestige is honor." The sprawling campus beyond the gates was breathtaking, pristine lawns, towering dormitories, and buildings that glistened in the afternoon sun. She took a deep breath, trying to push down the overwhelming feeling in her chest. This was a world far different from the small, dusty town where she grew up. Here, everything screamed of wealth and status. But she was not here because of money. She had earned her place through sheer determination. Ao was one of only 2 students to receive the Madame Oluchi Scholarship, a prestigious award granted to the brightest yet underprivileged girls. This scholarship was her only ticket to escaping poverty. It was her mother's dream come true, education at an elite academy, a chance at a brighter future. Beside her stood Zina, the only other scholarship student. With her braided hair and simple dress, Zina looked just as out of place as Ao felt. "Are you ready for this?" Zina whispered, eyeing the clusters of wealthy girls striding confidently across the campus. "I have to be," Ao replied. The Golden Trio. From the moment they set foot in Starlight Academy, Ao and Zina were made painfully aware of the social hierarchy. The school was ruled by the Golden Trio, Tara, Vanessa, and Jade. They were the daughters of senators, billionaires, and foreign diplomats. Everything about them was perfect: their flawless skin, designer uniforms tailored to fit, and their effortless way of making the world revolve around them. When they entered a room, voices hushed. When they walked through the hallways, other students stepped aside. "Look at them," Zina muttered one afternoon as they passed by the trio's lavishly decorated dorm corner. Tara sat with her legs crossed, sipping from a fancy juice box while flipping through a fashion magazine. Vanessa twirled her gold bracelet, laughing at something Jade whispered in her ear. They were surrounded by admirers, girls who wished to be in their circle, who hung on to their every word. "They think they own this school," Zina scoffed. Ao tried to ignore them, but it was hard. The Golden Trio made sure everyone knew where they stood. "Oh, look," Vanessa's voice rang out one day during lunch. "It's the charity cases." Tara glanced up from her plate, looking Ao and Zina up and down. "You girls must have really worked hard to get in here. It's so inspiring." Her voice dripped with sarcasm, and the surrounding girls giggled. Zina clenched her fist, ready to say something, but Ao nudged her arm. "Ignore them," Ao muttered under her breath. But deep inside, something stung. No matter how smart she was, no matter how hard she worked, they would always see her as less than them. A sudden interest. A few weeks into the semester, something strange happened. The Golden Trio started noticing Ao. At first, it was small things. A casual greeting in the hallway. A nod of acknowledgement during class. Then, one day after sports practice, Tara approached her. "You're pretty smart, aren't you?" Tara asked, leaning against a locker. Ao hesitated. "I guess." "No, you are. You always get the top scores." "That's kind of impressive." Ao didn't know how to respond. The same girl who used to mock her was suddenly complimenting her. "We've been thinking," Tara continued, exchanging glances with Vanessa and Jade. "Maybe you don't belong with the losers after all. Maybe you belong with us." Ao blinked. "What?" Jade smirked. "We are giving you a chance to be someone. You want to be someone, don't you?" Vanessa stepped forward, her perfume sweet and overpowering. "Imagine it, Ao. No more being invisible. No more struggling to fit in. With us, you'd have it all: respect, popularity, even a little luxury." Ao felt her heart race. It was tempting. For the first time, the girls who had everything were offering her a way in. She thought about Zina, about her mother's warnings, about the sacrifices that had brought her here. But she also thought about the endless whispers behind her back, the feeling of being an outsider, the deep desire to belong. Ao swallowed hard. "What do I have to do?" she asked. Tara's lips curled into a knowing smile. "Stick with us, and you'll find out. The temptation of a new life." Ao sat stiffly on the plush leather couch in Tara's dorm suite, her fingers gripping the edge of a designer throw pillow. The room smelled of expensive perfume and vanilla-scented candles, a stark contrast to the simple fragrance of soap and laundry detergent in her own tiny dorm. The golden trio lounged effortlessly around her, draped in silk robes and sipping on exotic fruit smoothies that had been delivered to them from outside the school. "Relax, Ao," Tara said with a smirk, reaching for a golden tray filled with imported chocolates. "You look like you've never sat on a real couch before." Ao swallowed, forcing a smile. In truth, she had never sat on anything this expensive. Vanessa, flipping through her phone, glanced at Ao's uniform and let out a small laugh. "We need to do something about this. You look too plain. Too basic," Jade added. Tara waved a hand. "We'll fix that. But first, try this." She handed Ao a slice of a rich, velvety cake topped with gold flakes. Ao hesitated before taking a bite. Her eyes widened. It was unlike anything she had ever tasted, soft, creamy, and melting on her tongue. "Good, isn't it?" Vanessa smirked. Ao nodded, unable to deny it. "This is just a small taste of the life we live," Tara said, crossing her legs. "No more queuing in the school cafeteria for stale bread and tasteless beans. When you're with us, you eat like a queen." Ao felt her heart pound. This was what it felt like to belong. To be important. But a tiny voice in her head whispered, "Is this really you?" Zina's warning. Zina noticed the changes immediately. Ao no longer sat with her during lunch. Instead, she was now surrounded by the golden trio, laughing at their jokes and indulging in their luxurious snacks. Zina cornered her one afternoon outside the dorms. "What's going on with you?" Ao blinked. "What do you mean?" "You've changed, Ao. Ever since you started hanging out with them, you're different." Ao scoffed, adjusting the new bracelet Tara had given her. "Zina, I'm just making new friends." "They're not your friends," Zina snapped. "They're using you. Can't you see that?" Ao rolled her eyes. "Maybe you're just jealous." Zina stepped back, head flashing across her face. "Jealous? Ao, do you even hear yourself? We came to this school with a purpose, to study, to build a future. But now, you're chasing after a life that isn't yours." Ao clenched her jaw. "You don't understand, Zina. I'm tired of struggling. I want more than just books and a scholarship. Maybe it's time I lived a little." Zina shook her head. "Just be careful. Because once you step into their world, it won't be easy to come back." Ao turned and walked away. But Zina's words lingered. The invitation. A week later, Tara made Ao an offer she couldn't refuse. "We're going out Saturday night," Tara whispered as they sat in their dorm. "An exclusive party. The kind of party where important people go." Ao frowned. "But we have curfew." "Curfew is for nobodies," Vanessa said, painting her nails. Jade leaned in. "You're not afraid, are you?" Ao hesitated. She had never broken school rules before. She had always been the responsible one, the one who played it safe. But something in Tara's voice, in the way Vanessa and Jade looked at her, made her feel like this was a test. A test of whether she truly belonged. She exhaled and nodded. "I'll come." Tara grinned. "Good girl. A risky escape. The night air was thick with excitement and danger as the girls tiptoed through the dark corridors of the dormitory. "Stay quiet," Tara whispered, leading them toward the back fence of the school compound. Eo's heart pounded as they reached the fence. It was tall, but this wasn't the first time the Golden Trio had done this. Jade went first, climbing swiftly before dropping onto the other side. Vanessa followed, then Tara. Eo hesitated. "Come on, Eo," Tara hissed from the other side. Eo swallowed her fear and climbed, jumping down into the unknown. The moment she landed, 3 sleek black cars pulled up on the empty street. Doors swung open. Inside each car sat a well-dressed older man, waiting. "Welcome to the real world, darling," Tara whispered as she took Eo's hand and led her toward one of the cars. Eo's pulse quickened. She had crossed the line. There was no turning back now. The dazzling nightlife. The moment Eo stepped into the crystal lounge, she felt like she had entered another world. The nightclub was a whirlwind of golden chandeliers, flashing neon lights, and the deep pulse of music vibrating through the floor. The air was thick with expensive cologne, the scent of luxury drinks, and the faint aroma of cigars. She had never been anywhere like this. Waiters in crisp uniforms moved through the crowd, carrying trays of champagne in tall, delicate glasses. Wealthy men and glamorous women filled the room, their laughter blending with the music. Eo's heart pounded as she followed Tara, Vanessa, and Jade deeper into the club. Heads turned in their direction, people noticed them, admired them. "Stick with us, and you'll never be invisible again," Tara whispered, giving Eo a knowing look. For the first time in her life, Eo felt important. A dangerous charm. The girls made their way to a VIP section, where plush velvet couches surrounded a low-glass table filled with bottles of champagne, exotic fruits, and stacks of cash. Vanessa whispered something to a waiter, who immediately poured them drinks. Eo hesitated before taking the glass handed to her. "It's just champagne," Jade said with a smirk. "Don't be a baby." Eo took a small sip. The bubbles tingled on her tongue, sweet yet sharp. She barely had time to process it before a deep, smooth voice spoke behind her. "You must be new." Eo turned to see a tall, handsome man in a tailored black suit. He had a sharp jawline, a confident smirk, and eyes that seemed to study her with interest. "This is Damien," Tara introduced, flashing him a playful smile. Damien extended a hand. His grip was firm, his watch glinting under the club lights. "Eo, right. You have a unique beauty," he said, his voice dripping with charm. Eo felt her cheeks warm. "You should sit with me," Damien said smoothly, motioning to a private booth. The Golden Trio exchanged glances and gave Eo an approving nod. "Go on," Tara whispered. "This is your moment. Learning the rules." Damien was nothing like the boys at school. He was older, polished, confident, and powerful. He spoke with authority, his deep voice hypnotic. As they talked, he leaned in closer, his cologne filling her senses. "You don't belong with little girls playing school," he said, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. "You deserve more. Luxury. Power. Security." Eo's heart pounded. Was this real? Could she truly have all of this? Meanwhile, across the lounge, Tara, Vanessa, and Jade watched with satisfaction. "She's a fast learner," Vanessa whispered. "She has potential," Jade added. Tara smirked. "She just needs to understand one thing," she said, swirling the champagne in her glass. "Men like Damien. They are not just fun. They are investments." The conflict. Eo left the nightclub drunk on attention, luxury, and the thrill of being desired. Damien had given her a brand new iPhone, a gold bracelet, and a wad of cash before she even left. "For you, my beautiful Eo," he had whispered, tucking the gifts into her hands. As the girl slipped back over the school fence, Eo's head buzzed, not just from the champagne, but from everything she had experienced. She wanted this life. But in the back of her mind, her mother's voice echoed. You were sent to this school to study, Eo. Not to chase distractions. She shook off the thought as she climbed into bed. What was the harm in having both? She could be smart and successful, while still enjoying the luxury the golden trio offered. At least, that's what she told herself. Admiration and envy. The next day, Eo walked through the school hallways with a confidence she had never known before. Her new iPhone sparkled in her hands, her gold bracelet caught the light, and her uniform seemed to fit differently, more polished, more powerful. Girls whispered as she passed. Look at Eo. Where did she get all that? She was with the golden trio last night. She's one of them now. Eo smiled to herself. She had arrived. But as she entered the dormitory, she spotted Zina, standing near their bunk. Her best friend's face was a mixture of sadness and disappointment. Eo. Zina's voice was barely a whisper. Eo sighed. Not now, Zina. Zina stared at her. Is this really what you want? Eo clenched her jaw. Maybe it is. And with that, she turned away. Zina didn't say another word. She just watched, knowing that Eo was slipping further into a world she might never escape, falling deeper into the trap. The distance between two worlds. Eo barely noticed how much she had changed. She no longer spent time in the library with Zina, nor did she care about the scholarship that had brought her to Starlight Academy. Instead, she spent her evenings texting Damien, admiring the expensive clothes and gifts he sent her, and planning her next night out. Her book sat untouched on her desk. Her grades slipped, but she barely noticed. The girl who once stayed up late reading was now sneaking out of school to party with the golden trio and their wealthy lovers. Eo's new life. Every Saturday, Damien's car would pull up outside the school fence, sleek and waiting. The moment Eo slipped into the leather seats, she felt like royalty. Damien took her to the best restaurants, the finest clubs, the most luxurious hotels. This is just the beginning, he would say, tucking $100 bills into her purse. You could have it all, Eo, money, power, influence. You just have to trust me. And Eo did. She believed his words when he said he would take care of her. That he would never hurt her. That she was different from the other girls. But Zina wasn't convinced. One evening, as Eo returned to the dorm, Zina was waiting for her. Eo, we need to talk. Eo sighed, slipping off her heels. Not now, Zina. Yes, now. Zina's voice was firm. Do you even realize what's happening to you? Your grades are dropping. You're always sneaking out. You think Damien actually cares about you. You're just a game to him. Eo's jaw clenched. You don't understand, Zina. No, Eo, you don't understand. Zina's voice cracked with frustration. You think these men care about you. They don't. They'll use you and throw you away when they're done. Eo scoffed, rolling her eyes. You're just jealous because I have a better life than you. Zina took a step back, head flashing across her face. You're not the Eo I knew, she whispered. Eo turned away. Maybe I never was. And with that, she closed the door on Zina and on the last part of her old self. The breaking point. That weekend, Damien took Eo to an exclusive club, one she had never been to before. The air smelled of cigars and whiskey. The music was slower, the crowd older. Eo felt a slight unease in her chest, but she pushed it aside. Relax, beautiful, Damien whispered, slipping a diamond bracelet onto her wrist. Tonight is special. But something felt different. She noticed other girls in the club, girls who looked lost, exhausted, broken. Some had glazed eyes, while others clung to wealthy men who barely acknowledged them. Who are they? Eo asked. Forget about them, Damien said smoothly. Tonight is about us. But as the night progressed, Damien's grip on her arm became tighter. His tone shifted from sweet to demanding. It's time you start giving back, Eo, he murmured in her ear. Eo frowned. What do you mean? He smacked. I've given you everything, money, gifts, a taste of luxury. And now, it's time you show me just how much you appreciate it. He leaned closer. His hand pressed firmly against her waist. Eo's heart pounded in panic. This wasn't the glamorous dream she had signed up for. This was something else. Something darker. Damien, I want to go home, she said, forcing a smile. His expression hardened. For the first time, he didn't look charming. He looked dangerous. Home, he scoffed. Don't be ungrateful, Eo. You're not a child anymore. He leaned in again, his hand trailing down her arm. Eo's breath hitched. Everyone in Zina had ever given her came rushing back. She had ignored the truth. And now, she was trapped. The escape. Eo's mind raced. She needed to get out. Now. She forced a giggle, masking the fear rising in her throat. You're right, she whispered. I just need a minute to freshen up. Damien smirked, seemingly satisfied. Hurry back. As soon as she turned the corner, Eo ran. Her heart pounded as she weaved through the club, her hands trembling as she pushed past bouncers, waiters, and other partygoers. She didn't stop running until she was outside, gulping in the cold night air. She fumbled for her phone. The first name that came to her mind was Zina. Her fingers shook as she dialed. Please pick up. Please pick up. After what felt like an eternity, Zina's voice came through. Eo. Tears streamed down Eo's face. I need help. Ine didn't hesitate. Tell me where you are. A costly mistake. The shocking discovery. Eo sat on the edge of her bed, her hands trembling as she stared at the pregnancy test in her shaking fingers. 2 lines. Positive. Her heart pounded so hard it drowned out the sounds of the girls chatting in the hallway. No, this can't be happening, she whispered, her breath coming in short gasps. She shoved the test deep into her bedside drawer, her mind spinning. How could this happen? She had been so careful. She grabbed her phone and dialed Damien. 1 ring. 2 rings. Then, voicemail. Eo tried again. No answer. A sinking feeling settled in her stomach. Something was wrong. The cold truth. Desperate, Eo took a taxi to the address Damien had once given her. A large, gated mansion loomed before her. The driveway was lined with sleek black cars, and the house looked like something out of a dream. Her fingers trembled as she pressed the intercom button. Seconds later, the gate opened, but instead of Damien, a woman in an elegant dress stepped out. Eo's stomach twisted. Can I help you? The woman asked, eyeing Eo suspiciously. I'm looking for Damien. The woman's expression changed. Something cold settled in her eyes. Damien, she scoffed. You must be one of his little side projects. Eo's throat went dry. Side project. I'm his wife. The words hit Eo like a punch. She stumbled back, shaking her head. No, that's not possible. The woman folded her arms. Let me guess, he promised you the world. Told you that you were special. She let out a bitter laugh. You're not the first, and you won't be the last. Tears stung Eo's eyes as reality crashed down on her. She had been nothing more than a game to him. a luxury he could throw away. Betrayed and abandoned. Shattered, Ao ran back to campus, hoping for comfort from Tara, Vanessa, and Jade. She found them lounging in the dormitory, laughing over a new set of designer bags. "Tara, I need to talk to you," Ao gasped, breathless from running. Tara raised an eyebrow but didn't move. "Can it wait? We are busy." "No. It's important." She pulled them aside and blurted out the truth. She was pregnant, Damien had abandoned her, and she didn't know what to do. For the first time, the trio didn't look impressed. Vanessa wrinkled her nose. "Wait, you're serious?" Ao nodded, tears pooling in her eyes. Jade scoffed. "Well, what did you expect?" Ao's breath hitched. I thought you'd help me." Tara rolled her eyes. "Help you? We warned you, Ao. We told you how things worked. You should have known better." Vanessa sighed. "You're on your own now." Ao felt like the ground had been ripped from beneath her. These were her friends. They were supposed to be there for her. But instead, they turned their backs and walked away. A desperate decision. Ao locked herself in her dorm room, her mind spiraling. She couldn't tell her mother. She couldn't tell the school authorities. If anyone found out, her scholarship would be revoked. She would be expelled. She would be disgraced. There was only one way out. She searched the internet, reading about home remedies for abortion. She tried herbal teas, bitter concoctions, and stomach-tightening wraps. Nothing worked. Her stomach continued to grow. Her panic turned into terror. She needed something stronger. She needed something that would work. A fatal mistake. Late one night, Ao snuck out of the dormitory. She had heard whispers of a Berkeley doctor, someone who helped girls like her. She met a woman in a dark, tiny room behind a rundown pharmacy. "You're too far along," the woman said, shaking her head. "This is risky." "I don't care," Ao said desperately. "I can't have this baby." The woman sighed and nodded. Ao closed her eyes as pain shot through her body. Hours later, she stumbled back to the dorm, weak and bleeding. She collapsed on her bed, clutching her stomach. By morning, she could barely move. Sweat drenched her body. Her vision blurred. A deep, terrifying pain tore through her. And then, everything went black. Too late. When Ao woke up, she was in a hospital bed. The white walls were blinding. The air smelled of disinfectant. And sitting beside her was Zina. Tears streamed down Zina's face. "Ao, why didn't you come to me?" Ao tried to speak, but her throat was too dry. A doctor entered the room, his face grim. "You lost a lot of blood," he said. "We did everything we could, but..." He sighed. "You won't be able to have children again." Ao's breath hitched. Her entire body went cold. Zina covered her mouth, muffling a sob. Ao felt nothing. She had wanted to erase one mistake. But instead, she had lost something she could never get back. The price of ignoring wisdom. A final collapse. Ao sat alone in the dormitory, her body weak, her vision blurred. She had returned from the hospital 2 days ago, but she hadn't told anyone what the doctor said. She couldn't. How could she? The truth was too painful to face. She felt hollow, like a shell of the girl she once was. Her stomach twisted with pain, but she ignored it. She had been ignoring everything. But that night, as she tried to stand, her legs gave out beneath her. A sharp, searing pain tore through her abdomen. Ao gasped, clutching her stomach. Then, darkness. The rush to the hospital. It was Zina's scream that alerted the school. She had come to check on Ao one last time, only to find her collapsed on the dorm floor, barely breathing. The school matron rushed in. Students crowded the hallway. Within minutes, an ambulance arrived. Ao's word faded in and out as she was lifted onto a stretcher. She barely registered the flashing sirens, the oxygen mask placed over her face. She could hear voices. Zina's sobs. The school nurse's frantic instructions. But her body was shutting down. She was slipping away. The mother's pain. When Ao's mother arrived at the hospital, she was trembling. Her eyes, swollen from tears, scanned the small hospital room where her daughter lay unconscious. The doctor's words had already shattered her heart. She has suffered severe internal bleeding. The damage is extensive. There's not much we can do. She had traveled all night to get there. She had prayed, she had begged God not to let it be true. But now, seeing Ao, so small, so fragile, she realized the worst had already happened. She sank into the chair beside the bed and gently took her daughter's cold hand. "My child," she whispered, her voice breaking. Tears fell onto Ao's lifeless fingers. "Why didn't you come to me?" Ao's lips parted slightly. Her eyelids fluttered, her breathing shallow. For a brief moment, her eyes opened. She stared at her mother, pain, regret, and sorrow reflecting in her gaze. "Mama, I'm sorry," Ao whispered. A tear slipped down her cheek. Her mother squeezed her hand, shaking her head. "No, my child. I forgive you. I love you. You are my Ao, always." Ao's lips trembled into the faintest smile. Then, her eyes closed. Her hand went limp. And her chest stopped rising. The school mourns. The news of Ao's death spread through Starlight Academy like wildfire. The dormitory was silent. No one could believe it. Some girls cried openly. Others stared at the walls, unable to process what had happened. Tara, Vanessa, and Jade sat in their dorm room, quiet, shaken, guilty. No words were exchanged between them. They all knew. They had played a part in this. But it was Zina who spoke. During the school assembly, she stood before hundreds of students, her hands trembling. Tears streamed down her face, but her voice was strong. Ao was my best friend. She was brilliant. She was kind. She had dreams. And she lost everything because she ignored wisdom. Silence fell over the crowd. She thought she could handle both worlds, the world of books and the world of luxury. She thought she was in control. But she wasn't. The moment she stepped into that life, she lost herself. Many girls bowed their heads, some wiping away tears. We are told to be careful. We are warned about making the wrong choices. But some of us think we know better. Some of us think we are too smart to fall into danger. Zina's voice broke. Ao thought she could balance it all. But she lost more than just her future. She lost her life. She wiped her eyes and took a deep breath. Let this be a lesson to all of us. Wisdom is not a burden, it is protection. Our parents, our teachers, and our conscience tell us what is right. Not to punish us, but to save us. Please, learn from Ao. Because no luxury, no popularity, and no man is worth your life. A wave of sobs broke through the crowd. Zina stepped down, her heart heavy. She had lost her friend. But maybe, just maybe, Ao's story would save someone else. The final lesson. In the weeks that followed, things changed at Starlight Academy. The Golden Trio lost their influence. Many girls distanced themselves from them. Some even left the school altogether, unable to bear the weight of guilt. But for Zina, Ao's absence would never fade. Every time she passed their old study spot, every time she saw their empty dorm bed, she remembered. And every time she heard a girl dreaming of luxury, of fast money, of men who promised the world. She told them Eo's story. Because luxury without wisdom leads to destruction. The end.